Ukraine-US relations have imploded after a gobsmacking attack from Donald Trump, who's labelled President Zelenskyy a dictator in a wild tirade that's left the world reeling.
An extraordinary slur.
A dictator without elections.
Levelled not at Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, but at his opposite.
A modestly successful comedian. President Zelenskyy talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war. And the only thing he was really good at was playing Joe Biden like a fiddle.
Trump taking aim at Volodymyr Zelenskyy just a day after falsely claiming Ukraine started a war with Russia.
You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
President Trump, unfortunately, lives in this disinformation space.
That response triggering today's escalation.
Zelenskyy better move fast or he's not going to have a country left.
As the world called Trump out.
Trump is showing us that he sees one of the world's most brutal dictators as his friend, and our longtime democratic allies in Europe as his enemies.
The aggressor here is Russia. They were the ones who illegally crossed into Ukraine, who invaded Ukraine.
Putin started this war. Russia started this war. And anyone who thinks otherwise is living in fantasy land.
Trump's claims about Ukraine's elections.
Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine.
Countered.
Ukrainian law specifically forbids holding presidential, parliamentary, local elections at a time of war.
His claims about Zelenskyy's approval rating.
I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4%.
Debunked. Polls this month showing almost 60% support for Ukraine's president.
We have seen this disinformation. We understand that it is coming from Russia.
So what is Trump's endgame in parroting Russian propaganda, and what does it mean for Ukraine?
Well, Steve Clemens joins us from Washington, D.C. Steve, what was your reaction when you saw President Trump call President Zelenskyy a dictator?
I felt like we were in an episode of that TV show Stranger Things and the Upside Down, where you're in a totally another universe, where all of a sudden the bad guys are good guys and the good guys are enemies. I mean, it's just a crazy moment when Donald Trump calls Zelenskyy a dictator. And I don't know what that makes Vladimir Putin, but apparently Trump likes Putin a lot more than he likes Zelenskyy, and that's just odd for a lot of people to hear.
I kind of gave up on Stranger Things after season 3. Can I give up on this too?
You know, I don't want to say I wish we could, but this is reality. We're going to, this is the gift that keeps on giving. We're going to have to understand and kind of, come to terms with the fact that Donald Trump, who's very powerful, one of the most powerful people in the world, just sees things very, very differently. And he's repositioning America's alliances in a very new way.
There's no doubt that is true. And I guess I'm trying to figure out exactly what's behind it. Does Donald Trump quite genuinely have a problem with Ukraine for some reason? And if so, what is it?
I don't know if he has a problem with Ukraine, and we also see that Donald Trump often overstates something. I mean, we've seen him impose tariffs on countries and then flip them back. And I think what we've seen on Ukraine is, he came out and said, hey, we'll help Ukraine if you give us $500 billion worth of rare earths and rare minerals and materials that the United States needs for its industry as the price for the United States continuing to help Ukraine, and then backed off of that. So there's a lot of, yo-yo effect that's going on in Donald Trump. But he sees Ukraine, I think, as a pawn in a chess match that he's playing with other leaders. And I think right now he's willing to sacrifice that pawn. Ukraine just doesn't matter that much to him. What seems to matter to Donald Trump is a very different and more positive relationship with Russia. And I think that's hard for a lot of people in the country to digest and understand where that's coming from. And it's certainly hard for NATO allies and other allies in the world saying, what is it with Russia? We saw this in the first term of the Trump administration where he just, likes Putin. And we keep seeing it. That's coming about again.
What about American people? I mean, it's been decades where Russia has been the enemy. We've seen Rocky. We get it. It's been axiomatic, right? So are the American people along for this ride?
Yeah, well, I think that the thing to look at is we've got Senator Kennedy, who's very conservative, a conservative senator from Louisiana, Senator Wicker of Mississippi, Senator Risch from Idaho. Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina. These are all real conservative national security foreign policy voices that are sort of choking and coughing right now on what Donald Trump is saying and doing. And I think it's going to be very important to watch where the conservative wing of America's foreign policy establishment is when it comes to what Donald Trump is doing. And I think we may be seeing the first big crack in Donald Trump's hold over some Republicans that aren't going to buy this direction that he's going.
Hey, Steve, since the inauguration, how many quiet days do you think you've had?
You know, they're not going to be many. And, you know, look, it's great for media.
There is that. There is that.
I guess the good guys win.
Steve Clemens, as always, thank you so much for taking us through it.
Thank you.